Welcome back, everybody, to WWTA News. Thank you for returning for another episode. What you gonna talk about this time, bruh? You gonna talk about some, bruh? Yes, I is. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna talk about. We're going to go through some news articles, of course. Y'all know how we roll. We got some news articles. So let's go through the news articles. Because I don't want y'all thinking that, I like to just make up stuff and talk about stuff that I'm just making up. That's not what we doing around here. So let's jump into some articles and see what's going on around the world. Crypto buyers flee the market as headwinds intensify. Global market cap falls below 1 trillion. What happened? I don't know. But did you all know that the crypto capital market has dropped to like 900 billion? Yeah, right? And I have a few thoughts on that, obviously. Okay. People are selling off, and there's probably a good reason people are selling off, but people are selling off. That's why the market's dropping, right? That's why the total crypto market cap, is dropping. But let's see what this article has to say. All right. The total market cap sunk to 994.6 billion at the time of press, a level not seen since February 13th, as the Paxos/Binance USD situation blew up, triggering market panic. Oh my God! They said get rid of that BUSD. Oh my God! You gotta kill it! You gotta kill it! The market's going crazy. Crazy. Really? Nah, Brad, ain't going crazy. New York regulators ordered Paxos to cease issuance of BUSD over allegations the stablecoin is not one-to-one backed with the United States dollar. We had this conversation before, didn't we? Right? I really want to think that the United States is saying, look, we finna have our own currency backed by our own currency, and we're not gonna have you running around telling everybody that you doing that, because you're not doing that, bruh. That's ours. Like USDC, yeah, that USDC circle, right? Yeah, see, I think that's the United States stuff right there. That's theirs. So you telling everybody that you got some nice stuff out there called Binance US dollar, but they like, yo, bro, you can't do that because that US dollar belong to us, bro. You can't do that. That's ours. So, that has caused a lot of issues, right? Oh my God, it's going crazy. Get out the market, it's crazy. I don't think so. A bullish start to 2023 saw the total market cap rise from 795.2 billion to peak at 1.134 trillion on February 21st. The trough to peak move represented a 42% increase in valuation. However, as the fallout from what is this? I want to say there's some typos is what I want to say. I think what they're saying here is, however, as the fallout from the state of crypto bankruptcies catches up, not forgetting continuing macro uncertainty, crypto buyers have moved to exit their positions. Okay. Yeah, I think there's some typos there. Yes, right. So a lot of things. So I want to talk about, right, people getting out of their positions of crypto as well as stock. And we all know right now, if you're watching this video, you're definitely already keeping up with things going on in the United States economy as well as all economies across this realm of existence. And we're watching it because that's how we're going to know how to position ourselves during these hard times we're going through. So when when we're looking at, you've gotten your hands on crypto, you've held it for a long time, you've seen it devalue. You're unsure of what tomorrow's going to bring, And then you hear more crazy news, like crazy news after crazy news. Oh my God, the inflation for the United States is terrible. It's causing problems in other countries. It's terrible. It's going to bring other countries and banks down. It's terrible, right? So, when news starts coming out, even such as this situation with the Binance, right? It's scary. So the common retailer, right? We're common. We're not, we're not, we don't understand how to really move around this space like those who deal in stocks, because we don't deal with it all the time, right? And it's still so new. We get nervous and scared, and we say, "Oh my God, somebody said this. Let's run, flee." So with that and all the financial issues that other countries are having, we're having food crisis and food shortage, and we're having weather destruction in other countries tearing up land. So it's very understandable that people are withdrawing. And then with the recent news, Jerome Powell basically talking about they're needing to keep the interest rates high, which is going to eventually cause problems for banks, businesses, and then that situation is going to trickle down. A lot of people are getting scared, and this is common. There's nothing new about this. It happens with the stock market, up and down and up and down and up and down, right? So we're going into a new financial system, and even Jerome Powell goes on to say that coming to the United States is what did he say? The digital payments or whatever. He didn't want to allude to the CBDC directly, saying that might take some time, but these real-time payments is what he was going on to speak about. Is coming. It's about to be here. So just paying attention and keeping up with that stuff. Those things could cause people a little fear and cause them to withdraw, to sell off, just like they do in stocks. Okay, that doesn't mean it's the end of crypto, just like it would mean it's the end of stocks. You gotta watch everything. I know it's so easy to get wrapped up in what a person says, right? But then we have to do our research. I find from time to time, I'll hear something, and then if I go research it, I'll find out, oh, that was a waste. That's not really even true what that person said. Because a lot of people would do that to mislead or misdirect. I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional. I don't know. I'm not going to judge anybody. But so those things happen. And then I think this plays a big part of why we're seeing the sell-off in general as a whole. Fear, right? I just think it's fear. All right, we got another article. FCA Met Police continue Bitcoin ATM crackdown in East London. Okay, the United Kingdom Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, continued its crackdown on illegal Bitcoin automated teller machines, ATMs, this week, announcing it had inspected several sites in East London suspected of hosting unregistered machines. How dare you set up an ATM machine, getting that money, charging whatever you charged, and we're not getting our cut? Did you think you were going to do that on these lands where we conduct business and we weren't going to get our cut? I only wonder, right? It's just like, it's so cynical, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, yo, really? Do you think it's that simple? Right? We want our cut. All right, moving along. Europe's banks sucked into global rout as high rates reality hits home. High rate reality, right? London, Frankfurt, March 10th. European bank shares tumbled on Friday in the wake of a dramatic sell-off in U.S. bank stocks amid spreading jitters about the sector's vulnerability to the rising cost of money. Wait a minute, what? Dramatic sell-off of United States bank stocks. Europeans was like, yo, we don't want those stocks. It's getting crazy over there. We hearing all this noise over here about this and that. I don't think we want y'all stocks. We don't want y'all bank stocks, right? What are you talking about, right? Rising cost of money? What do you mean, right? What are you talking about, the rising cost of money, right? Is there something we're missing here? The global rout in bank stocks was prompted by Silicon Valley Bank, a major banking partner for the United States tech sector. being forced to raise fresh or new capital after losing 1.8 billion selling a package of bonds to meet depositor demands for cash, right? So this bank needed liquidity for their depositors demanding cash, right? This bank needed liquidity. Okay? They didn't have it. That's what I'm hearing. They didn't have it. Right? They need to raise fresh cash from what? Raise it from what? The dead? What are you talking about? They're forced to raise. No, you don't have liquidity. Right? You don't have it. Let's do this real quick. Because y'all rolling with me, and sometimes it's just best that we do certain things. And certain things that I like to do is just deal with the definitions of things. Let's get over here real quick. So I like to go into the etymological dictionary, right? So I can get a beginning and then, the ordinary and everything else, right? All right, so let's talk about capital, right? What is capital? As of the 1610s, it's person's wealth, from Latin stock, property, capital, chief, first, right? The wealth employed in carrying on a particular business. In broader sense, in political economy, that part of the produce of industry which is available for further production. The money that you've made to continue to either conduct business or grow your business. So they didn't have the money, right? The capital, the money, liquidity, the money, the capital, the money. They didn't have it. For who? The depositors demanding cash. They didn't have it. What do you mean? So they got to sell off packaged bonds, right? Now wait a minute. We had this discussion. If y'all haven't watched a lot of my videos, I've had this discussion before where I talked about way back when those overnight bailouts that everybody was talking about. Like, oh my God, there's the Fed again bailing these banks out overnight. And they didn't really want to tell you in detail what that meant. And I was like, nah, this is real simple. And this is real simple. So what's happening is the banks would put in a package. It's right here. They'll put in a package the debt bonds, right? Okay. Hey, let's do this. Hold on. Let's deal with bonds. Okay. Let's deal with this, y'all. Because this is how I had to get an understanding. I'm not the smartest thing out there, but I wanted to know what was being discussed. So I would open up this dictionary, right? And it's called an etymological dictionary online. You can pull it up and do it just like this. A bond, right? As of early 13th century, anything that binds, fastens, or confines, a phonetic variant of band, and at first interchangeable with it for vowel change, see long, also influenced by unrelated Old English householder, literally dweller, right? From early 14th century as an agreement or a covenant. Right? A covenant. We ain't gonna have that conversation. Let's just keep it moving, bro. From late 14th century as a binding or uniting power or influence. The legalistic sense of an instrument binding one to pay a sum to another is recorded by 1590s. The meaning of method of laying bricks in courses is that. We don't care about the bricks. We care about the financial discussion. So the bond is that contract stating that if we pay for this, you're going to pay us back over this predetermined time, and there's going to be some things inside this agreement that you're going to have to agree to so that we pay for that item that you want. All right. So let's just say you went and bought a car and you took a bond, right? You signed a bond. Well, what's that? The contract. Nah, they not the same thing, bro. I signed a contract to get a loan. You took a loan. Yeah, man. Yeah, you bonded yourself with an agreement to pay a sum. Nah, man. Nah, that's what you did. That's what you did. You contracted yourself, a contractual agreement. Yeah, y'all don't even want to just, like, when you back up and understand a contractual agreement is voluntary servitude, and that eventually takes you to the other S word. That's just crazy, right? But it's hard to imagine that when you're just talking about something as simple as finance, right? But that's neither here or there, right? So, all right, let's deal with this. So the bank did not have liquidity, capital, or money. They didn't have it. They didn't have it for the depositors that were demanding cash. But they did have contracts, debt bonds, agreements for stuff like cars, personal loans, mortgage loans. Businesses take loans from banks all the time to purchase the supplies and goods they need. If you want to start up a business, you'll usually go to a bank with your little plan that you have on how you're going to run the business and what's needed, and then you take your loan. It happens all the time. These are bonds. Right? These are agreements dealing with sums and appointed times. These are contractual agreements. The bond is a contractual agreement. Okay. The bond is just a contractual agreement. Right. So then the Fed, like back in the day when we were going through that crisis, the Fed would do the overnight bailout. So the Fed would say, okay, well, check this out. We print money because that's what we do. We make the money. We make the money. We make the money. We print it. So this is what we're going to do. So that you have fresh capital in the morning for your depositors, right? So you got fresh capital in the morning when they come in, they want to demand that money so you can pay them. We'll package up some of them debt bonds and sell them over to us, right? And we'll do a bond, set an appointed time and appointed amount of money, a sum, and that's what you'll have to do, right? And then you'll be liquid that morning because we're going to give you some money. All right, we're going to give you the money. So that's what that is right there. That's all that is, right? The depositors didn't have the money. That's what's been going on the whole time, right? So essentially, a lot of the debt that the United States is taking on, we created it, right? Are we going to hold ourselves accountable for that? Did we create the debt? You know, we want loans. We want to buy cars. We want to buy items for whatever items we want to buy. We want to buy homes, right? And then the banks fail to be able to pay those debt contracts or those bonds, and then they get bailed out by the Fed, right? And then the Fed demands payment, and you don't pay. So then the banks they start rolling into these situations where they file bankruptcy. You know what I'm saying? And then it doesn't matter because your debt's in a contract being held by the Fed, right? And so then the banks fall in on themselves and they got to switch things up. They got to find capital again. So then what we're seeing here, right? European bank shares tumbled on Friday in the wake of a dramatic sell-off in U.S. bank stocks. People are selling off their shares of stocks in the United States banks. Why? Are they understanding that years ago those bailouts were leading up to where we are today? Like, do y'all look at the debtclock.org? Check that thing out. Go check it out. Neil Wilson, chief market analyst at Marcus.com, said that the episode could be the straw that breaks the camel's back for banks after worries about ever higher interest rates and a fragile U.S. It's very fragile, okay? And they would have to heighten the interest rates to start paying back these debts because these bonds need to be paid off. But they're not being paid off because to keep the United States afloat, you had to have lower interest rates for so long. And then people took that and ran with it like, well, the interest rate is low. I'm going to go get me a new car. I'm going to go get this new house. And that was probably not the best thing to do, but we did these things, right? We did these things as a nation, the nation known as the United States. And so it looks like, right, the banks should have probably not given out so many loans, so they kind of ran themselves into a snag. And so us, unbeknowing, just thinking, oh, lower interest rate, this will be a great time, right? And then they promoted, oh, it's a great time. Come buy a car. Banks are doing this. It's a great time, great time. You want to buy a house? Great time to buy a house. Come buy a house. Banks are doing it. They're handing out money left and right. Come buy a house, you know, and then things turn around and we get high interest rates, right? Then these high interest rates aren't enough. They got to keep going. The Fed charges higher interest rates on their debts, right? Now who's in debt to the Fed? Well, we just read about that, right? Well, it's alluding to, if you paid attention to the past articles from months and months ago, it alludes back to the fact that, well, the Fed has been buying off the debts or the bonds from the banks, right? And so they had an appointed time via a bond to pay off the maturity date to pay off that bond, right? So because they failed to do that, they are in a position now where they'll fall in on themselves, right? So they're in debt to the Fed, and they got to pay it off, so they got to increase that interest rate, right? So yes, banks are terrified because they can't stand up, right? They can't. There's nothing they can do now. They screwed themselves. They have to increase interest rates. But what does that mean to the citizen of the United States, right? So if you increase your interest rates on these debts that we have, well, the problem is where I might have been paying, I don't know, just throwing numbers out there. Let's say I'm paying $500 a month for a car. I don't know. Let's just say that. And then maybe inside that agreement, there was a time period, right, where that interest rate could be changed or altered, right? Maybe there's something in the agreement. I don't know. Whoever reads their agreement, who really reads their agreements when they sign contracts? Most people don't. It's just some silly stuff we do. We'll sign on a dotted line. Could be giving away organs for all we know. We don't know. And we sign on and we get this. We get the goods, right? So let's just say that's one of the things that can happen is that at a certain period of time, the interest rate can be changed and adjusted. So if that happens and the interest rate grows, that means your monthly payment is going to alter because it's got to now meet the interest as well as the actual payment itself. So you could see a $500 loan possibly turn to $560, $600, $660, and going on and up. You know what I'm saying? And let's just say, okay, you have to refinance a house and you want to put your vehicles under it to try to save money. And so when you do that, you get stuck with a new interest rate, and then that takes all that debt and probably adds another 200,000 to that debt, or 300,000. So who knows the details, because I'm not in that business. I don't do that stuff, but I do understand the basics of it, right? You sign the agreements for a time and a time maturity, and that's when it should be, all debt should be paid. Okay. So anyways, yes, okay. The straw that breaks the camel's back. Yes, banks are terrified. Higher interest, they got to pay the Fed. So when the Fed increases their interest rate, the banks are directly affected by it. And if the bank's directly affected by it, you're directly affected by it, because now if you want to get a loan from your bank, they're telling you, oh, it's going to be an 8% interest rate charge if you get a loan from us. Why? That's none of your business. But that's what it is. You want to buy that car where it's going to cost you 10%, 12%, 24%, 25%, 30%, 40% interest rate. We're going to need you to put down X amount of a down payment plus pay this high interest rate. So that means let's say a $30,000 car might turn into a 7-year $65,000, $70,000 car, and they got you tied into this with a high down payment and those interest payments to help pay off these interest rates, or to pay off these loans that they owe back to the Fed. You see what I'm saying? So meanwhile, we're not even thinking about that. We're just calmly moving around, thinking, okay, this will be a great time. I got this little bit of money. I'd like to go ahead and get this new thing. So I'll go ahead and take a loan, or I'll go ahead and spend more on the credit card. Credit cards are saying, oh, yeah, we'll give you a higher limit. Yeah, take this. And you're like, oh, a higher limit. That's cool. And you take it and you're just spending. You just swipe the card. It's just common, normal. You just swipe the card, not understanding that bank has a debt obligation, and they're just, we won't let them know that we're really going to hit them with a high interest rate at an appointed time. We're not going to let them know those things. These are just the things that are going to happen. So, it could be that way and it could not be that way. Business is business. But one thing stands for sure is debts have to be paid. Now we're talking about people in Europe saying they're selling off their shares of these bank debts. Like they don't want shares of these banks. That's interesting. Why? Although many analysts did not see a systemic threat to the global banking system, the negative effects for lenders of higher central bank interest rates was now being felt. So you're you you're tasting it now. You owe that debt, and these higher interest rates are really affecting you, right? You were a lender giving out loans, and your loans weren't being paid back, and then these central banks, they were paying banks, these big banks, central banks were basically making you liquid. Now you got to pay them back. We knew this was coming. This is no secret. We knew when they were doing them bank bailouts that this might not look good. If you keep taking these bailouts, you got to pay these people back. But let's continue. It is leverage in the system that is the problem, said James Athey, investment director of Aberdeen Monetary Policy. Way too easy for way too long. All right, let's see what leverage is, right? Leverage, as of 1724, action of a lever. From lever, a noun, a thing, right? And age, meaning lever plus age, meaning power or force of a lever, is from 1827. The figurative sense, advantage for accomplishing a purpose. An advantage for accomplishing a purpose is from 1858. The financial sense is attested by 1933. American English, a verb in the financial sense, by 1956. Right? Basically, I can control the switch, right? I have the power to control what happens, right? There's the leverage, the switch to the system, right? I can pull the lever, right? I got the who's got the lever though? Who got the lever, right? Somebody in power has the lever, and so in this system, it's leverage. Whoever is holding it. So we don't know. We can't speak directly, right? That's crazy. But it says here, monetary policy is way too easy for way too long. So it would almost seem like this person's trying to say he who controls the monetary policies, government, are the ones that have the control or leverage in this system. That's just what it looks like they're trying to say here. I don't know. I could be wrong. Of course, you can always get in the comment section and share your thoughts. But it just looks like that's what this person's trying to say. All right. It goes on to say global borrowing costs have risen at the fastest pace in decades over the last year as the Federal Reserve lifted U.S. rates 450 basis points from near zero, while the European Central Bank hiked the Eurozones by 300 base points. All right, so across the globe, quote unquote, across this world that we know as Earth, countries are borrowing, and their borrowing costs have risen because, currency is based off what? The United States dollar. And so everybody trades through that because that's like the global reserve currency. And so because they've heightened it, and this lady, I keep up with her. She is, I can't remember her name. Why I can't remember her name? It's the IMF lady. The IMF lady. Not Lagarde is the other one. Not the gray hair lady. What is her name? It's right there. Oh gosh. Her name is right there. I can't think of, but it's the IMF lady, right? She was telling us last year, like, you better get your business in order if you're dealing in the United States currency and debt, because they're going through some things just like everybody else, and some problems are going to arise here shortly. So start getting your debts and stuff in order and get your money right. Oh God, it's right there. All right, so there's Christine Lagarde, who is with the she's with the come on, I got my groups so mixed up. I don't have them mixed up. They're right there in my head. And the other lady with the IMF with the brown hair, gosh, I can't think of. Somebody please put her name in the comments box, because I'm really wrestling with that. Whatever. So anyway, I'll move past that. But I'm sure you all keep up with that stuff. Christiana Christiana. Oh my gosh, I can't think of her name. Anyways, it goes on to say other parts of Europe and many developing economies have done even more. There are concerns, however, that price inflation is staying high, something that would drive further rate hikes. So the businesses have to pay the banks. They take loans from the banks, and that's how they're able to get their goods and supplies. So, with the quote unquote raise of interest rates that the central banks are requiring back from the banks that they bailed out, the banks have to then increase their interest rates, which is causing the businesses to inflate their prices so that they can meet the demands of those payments for those debts that they have. So that's how I understand it. And I could be wrong. Georgiana? Is it Georgiana? Georgiana? The lady of IMF? Georgiana? Oh gosh. You see, my brain is still wrestling with that because there's two groups, right? And it's like there's the IMF and there's the what is the, oh my God. The gosh, man. And of course, after I get done getting all this information out, all of this stuff's going to fall right back because I talk about it all the time. But I think like Georgiana, the lady for the IMF. Anyway, so of course, that's like a trickle down. So that debt that you owe causes a trickle down situation, which is going to hit all of us, which is why we see price hikes in grocery stores, shopping, so on and so forth. It's all tying back to these bailouts. All right, that's all that is. The crisis at SVB underscored the vulnerability of banks, many of which were propped up by trillions of dollars of taxpayers' cash following the global financial crisis more than a decade ago, right? So taxpayers' cash, well, obviously that has to go back to the federal government and taxes, right? And so that was allowing them to essentially have a reason to print money. They have to have money coming in to try to get value. And we do understand that the dollars are backed essentially by IOUs or debt that we have to pay back. And so they get all this stuff back, but the tax is the only actual real income versus the IOU, right? But it's pretty much an IOU economy. Anyways, John Cronin, an analyst at Goodbody, said investors were worried about the falling value of banks' investments and how that could hit the capital underpinning their business, as well as savers switching banks for a better deal. So everybody's trying to do good business. And this can cause problems. So it's like, let me back out of that bank because it looks like they've gotten themselves into a situation that they can't get out of. Nothing personal. It's just business. I don't really want to be stuck over here having to cough up all my capital, which is allowing me to run my business and do the things that I want to do for my financial freedom, because you're tied up in the fact that you overextended yourself. You took on a lot more debt than you yourself as a bank could handle. Interesting. All right, banks typically invest heavily in government bonds. In particular, of course. Well, why would they have to do that? Because they're doing these contracts with the government, right? Of course, you've got to invest in them. You did the contract with them, right? If you package up your debt bonds and then you sell them, or you recontract them in a negotiable contract, right, or instrument, financially to at an appointed time or date, the contract to mature and the debt to be paid off with your government, with your debt, right, that you have, so that they can then therefore make you liquid, give you capital. Then of course you're typically invested heavily in the government. Come on, man. Government bonds. You've created them with them. They're theirs because of you. You created these for them. It goes to, in particular, those of their home country, making them vulnerable to their falling value, right? It's like, what is it? The snake eating its own tail? That's kind of like what it's doing. It's like business, right? Man, I'm trying to understand this, and if anybody has input, feel free to share your thoughts. But I'm just saying, from the way I understand it, this is just not a good look, right? For banks, for us, for businesses, it's not looking good. And being that the debt that the countries have, right, is so high, they have to pay that debt off. They can't just forget about the debt. How does that work? This debt has to be paid. So how do you just wipe it? Do you have something to replace that? Right? Because the work, the goods, the services, all of this stuff is done and over with, right? Everything's been received. It's got to be paid for. Again, the United States has an IOU system, and now it's overly used. It's too heavy. It's full beyond full. So it has to be paid back. And the question is, how do they get that done? Right? There's a good question. But anyways, I thought this was a really good article, and I thought I'd share it. It just helps us open up our eyes and think a little bit more about what's going on around us. If anybody has input, get in the comment section. Feel free. I just love just thinking about stuff like this and trying to understand it, because I'm nobody special. I'm learning, and I'm trying to understand things, and it just looks like we always get the bad side of the deal. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, hey, if you all made it in this video, I really appreciate that. I thank you for taking the time to, go through this article and listen to some of the ramblings and thoughts and ideas I have. And I'll catch you all in another episode. Thank you.